Wake up, America. For you know what? Most of you are completely brainwashed. Brainwashed to the point that you don't even know you're brainwashed. Is this going to be a 4-part series? This is Gaia O'Day, usually speaking about hypnosis or doing trances. But as I say on my radio show, hypnosis makes the world go round. And by God, hypnosis can very much be seen as conditioning and propaganda and mind control and brainwashing. And I want to do this particular video because I want you to examine, to think, if you can still think. So many of you, it has nothing to do with how high your IQ is, what job you have. It really doesn't. It has a lot more to do with your being brought up in America. I was raised in America and lived in America until I was almost 18 years old. And every single morning, every single school morning, from 6 years of age on, first grade on, the first thing we did was stand up, put our right hand over our heart, and pledge allegiance to the flag. We didn't know what we were saying, at first anyway, probably till we were teenagers. Did we even bother noticing? But it sunk in, it sunk in. Trust me, I am a certified clinical hypnotherapist with advanced study on the mind, and a late husband who was a gifted psychiatrist. And for 25 years, we spent many, virtually the greater part of our discussions, our evening discussions, were about the mind. I know a lot about the mind. And I also am a great observer. When I arrived for my first day as a freshman at the University of California, Irvine, for a class on Chinese history, I was shocked. The professor, I remember saying that the Pearl Harbor incident that got the Americans into the war, not in the Pacific theater at first, but against Germany, that this was all a setup. And I found that fascinating. That was just the beginning. I learned a lot of fascinating things that I didn't learn as an undergraduate, as a secondary school student, or a grammar school student, when all I learned about was how wonderful George Washington was when he chopped down the cherry tree and said, "Father, I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree." Or Abraham Lincoln, where they call him Honest Abe. And all the other wonderful, perfect, almost divine fathers of our country or leaders of our country who really were so mythical. They had no faults whatsoever. History was really quite boring. It was just a little bit too fairyland for me. I didn't like history at all. It's amazing. I got a PhD in it eventually. But that wasn't until I got out of the programming of secondary school, where I was finally allowed a little bit longer leash and able to actually encourage, to actually think for myself that grades were not based on 100% attendance record and not being late. I was amazed that there were people that were getting A's in their classes, and they hardly ever showed up. And this was so amazing because it was brainwashed into me that you must attend all these classes, which I thought was so boring that I actually dropped out of high school at 16. I tested in to the University of California at Irvine. That's how I got in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten in because I do not have a high school diploma. I found it to be a total, complete bore. But that's neither here nor there. All I'm saying is that I knew it was just one big babysitter, and the stuff that you read at the high school I went to, which happened to be one of the best schools in California for secondary school, was a crashing bore and nothing but a big babysitter. Okay, that's my introduction. I'd like to say that in this 4-part series that I'm going to be saying some things that you're not going to like very much, perhaps. Some things you probably already know, maybe you don't. The Vietnam War. The Vietnam War, which started in 1964 with the phony excuse of the Bay of Tonkin, starting it with the North Vietnamese firing on American ships, which of course is a total lie, and everybody knows that. That is not like Pearl Harbor, which nobody's proven yet. McNamara made that clear to clear his conscience of all the 55,000 American young men who were drafted to go into a country and fight a war that there was no reason to fight a war over. And God knows how many of the 55,000 after that, 55,000, were maimed and disfigured and lost limbs and went insane. Did you know that half the homeless people in the United States are veterans of the Vietnam War? You see a lot of them in wheelchairs or walking around with one leg or mumbling to themselves. At least half of the men, when they were in Vietnam, the GIs, became heroin addicts, and all were smoking lots of blow. I mean, it was a hell. And it was a lie. And over 3 million Vietnamese civilians, little children, napalm, Agent Orange, 3 million plus Vietnamese killed. For what? I don't know why. 3 million. 3 million Vietnamese. And all the screwed up Americans over a lie. Over a big lie. World War II. Prior to Pearl Harbor, in December 7th, 1941, the people of America had no interest in getting involved with the war and Hitler in Europe. Nobody wanted to fight. That's why they did the Pearl Harbor thing. In fact, George W. Bush's grandpappy, he financed the Blitz. He paid for the bombs that the Nazis bombed London with. So much money until 1941 and on after that. finally, and this is public record, just check it out. He had a little problem once the United States declared war on Germany. Like he'd consorted with the enemy. But of course they weren't our enemy at the time, were they? We paid a little fine, and that was all it was, and they kept it all hush-hush. Same with the J.P. Morgan. Same thing with other big, top, Eastern U.S. families who were very, very pro-Nazi. Very, very pro-Nazi. And the Ford factory in Cologne, Germany, it ran through the war. It ran through the war, owned by Henry Ford. Owned by Henry Ford, kept going till I think 1944, when the Allies bombed Ford's factory of Jeeps. After the war, Ford sued the U.S. government for destroying a Nazi Jeep factory owned, I guess, by Ford, because Ford sued the U.S. government for millions and millions of dollars because his beloved Jeep factory was blown up by the Allies, by the Americans, because we were supposedly at war with the Germans and the Nazis. And guess what? Ford won. He got a big settlement from the American government. So the American government and the young Americans and over 500,000 American young men and women, mostly men, died to save their country for freedom. And another American sues the Americans for bombing his Nazi Jeep factory in Cologne and wins. And the American taxpayers pay him money, millions of dollars. I think this is quite interesting. I'll stop. This is the end of number 1. Just think about it. Think about it. Does this make any sense to you? This is not some wacko. I don't belong to any political organizations. I have never marched in any sort of anti-anything or pro-anything. Peace march, war march, anti-this, pro-that. I do not like groups. I am no one's guru. I am not a follower. And I hate being a leader because I really don't want followers. I just want to speak my mind, my individual mind. If you want to listen, fine. If you don't want to listen, you know what to do about that. But I have another session coming up in just a sec. I'm going to put it up. And I think, actually, this is really against all odds. This is definitely a Sisyphistic endeavor to try and get brainwashed people unbrainwashed. Because the thing is, when you're brainwashed, you don't know you're brainwashed. And if you're listening to this, and I'm not a gambling woman, I'm not a betting person, I haven't been to Vegas, God, I can't remember, I haven't been there in so long, and I never liked it once. I don't gamble, but I would bet my life that at least half of you, if not most of you, think what I'm saying is either traitorous or that I'm some nut.